From the files of Jefferson Clark, today I'm going to call this another one of my daydreaming columns. Every once in a while, as I sit down to type these things, I find myself daydreaming about years and times gone by. This time my memory was jogged a bit by some information the famous Taylor Redbird Mike McNamara sent me about the 1956-57 Taylor Redbirds. Here's what I remembered and some of the information Mike gave me. In an earlier column about these Redbirds, I talked about the famous Campbell family that moved here from Indiana. The father and coach of the Sentinel Butte Sentinels brought a new style basketball to North Dakota, that being a philosophy of putting up 100 shots a game and running and a-gunning. Now that year, Coach Jim Verana and the Redbirds reeled off 14 straight wins to open the season. Then all of a sudden they were scheduled to play the undefeated run-and-gun Sentinel Butte Sentinels and their new Indiana offense. The game was originally scheduled for the old bandbox-sized Taylor Lions Hall, but because of the huge fan interest in the up-and-coming battle, the game was rescheduled at Scott Gymnasium in Dickinson. Before a standing-room-only crowd, the game turned out to be a tremendous seesaw battle, with Sentinel Butte finally finishing in front 60-56. The Sentinels were led in scoring by Clark Hickory Campbell with 24 points and brother John with 18. You may remember John Campbell later coached the Gladstone Hornets, then moved to Hettinger, where he continued his career as a coach and later as an administrator of that facility. The Redbirds were led in scoring by Wayne Koffler with 30, Morris Hunke with 18, Bert Swanson, Dale Sattler, Dennis Robb, and Richard Heinert each had a whopping 2 points in that game. Now remember, this was Class C basketball, about as important to those Class C towns then as it is to the Class B towns today. The game was officiated by Hollis Dietz and Don Mueller. Later, during the District 32 tournament, the Redbirds were to get sweet revenge. They cruised by Freiburg and Galva by sizable margins, while Sentinel Butte was demolishing Leffer and Southart. That set the stage for the second meeting, and this time around, when it really counted, the Redbirds dumped the Sentinels 62-50 to win the championship. Hickory Campbell, who averaged 33 points a game that year, again led the Sentinels with 29, and brother John, who averaged 16 a game that year, scored 13. The Redbirds were led by Koffler with 29 and Swanson with 17. In the regional tournament, Taylor zipped by the Center Wildcats with Koffler, Hunke, Swanson, and Sattler leading the way with 24, 17, 9, and 6 points respectively. Then it was a battle with Mandaree and a 70-61 win for the Taylor Redbirds in the championship of the region. Eddie Lonefight, later to play for the Dickinson State Teachers College Savages, led the way for Mandaree with 28. Koffler had 28, Hunke 20, and Swanson 18 in that 70-61 win over the Indians. Then it was on to greater glory at the State Class A tournament in Jamestown, with wins over Tolly 64-56 and a slim win over Nome 59-58 in the semifinals. Just like that, the Birds were in the state championship game against the undefeated powerhouse Elson. The Elson team was one of the first North Dakota teams that played ferocious defense and tried to run you right off the floor, a style that was not totally unlike that of Sentinel Butte. In any case, the Redbirds fell a bit short as Elson, on its way to winning a record 79 straight games and 3 consecutive state Class C titles, held off the Redbirds 65-56. The Birds were down by just 3 points going into the fourth quarter, but just couldn't seem to get it done. In the tournament, Koffler scored 72, Hunke had 54, and Swanson had 31 points to lead the Redbirds. The other members of that team included Dennis Bobb, Richard Heinert, Robert Brame, Dale Sattler, Don Mall, Elmer Okrip, and Joe Hartman. The 1956-57 edition of the Taylor Redbirds, perhaps Taylor's all-time greatest team. I'm Jefferson Clark.